An all-new episode of The Mitch, Lafon, and Jeremy White Show.
Tuesday at noon.
Available wherever you stream.
All right, well, look, let's get right into this. Really excited about this new music that's going to be coming out. Also, the last ever Genesis shows. The last Domino. Final dates kicking off on March 7th at the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin, Germany. Heading towards, he's doing Cologne, Hanover, performing in France, Amsterdam, London at the O2, which just reopened, and wrapping up the Cineworld O2 Arena on March 26th, which apparently I think is going to be the last show ever. Welcome to the show, Nic Collins from Genesis.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And of course, Better Strangers.
Yes,
let's not forget.
Well, we're going to talk all about Better Strangers, but I know Mitch has been on like this crazy Genesis kick lately, and he wants to pick your brain on pretty much all the songs that are in the set list and pretty much everything.
Let's stick to Better Strangers for now. We'll get to that stuff later. Though I will say, I have seen 3 shows of Genesis and one with Phil on the Better Dead, and I was just so impressed by the drumming. And I was talking to Leland Sklar, and he said, you know, Nick's in this band because he deserves to be here. And I just sort of went, yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before we talk about the Genesis stuff, let's talk about this project Better Strangers for a second, because you know, you were in a band before and you kind of dissolved that. Now you guys kind of took the remainder of the band that was there and got this new project going. And the music is really cool because it sounds commercial, but it also sounds experimental, which is like right up my alley. Talk a little bit about the music, because it's really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, that project is, it's been kind of like a continuation of several projects that have been in the works for a few years now. Me and the bassist Yannick Weingarten and the guitarist Jerry Rodriguez, we've been friends for, a while, since we were pretty much like, early stages of high school. And we were playing in bands together and, really grew as musicians together, which has been a really awesome thing. I always felt like, I remember talking to my dad about this, actually. He's like, you're lucky that you found your people at such a young age, the people that you kind of understand and
your jam buds.
Yeah, relate to musically. So we really kind of grew as musicians and as a band throughout, all these different projects. And so when the last thing kind of fell apart, where there was no kind of doubt in our minds that we were going to keep going. We just needed to find the right piece to the puzzle. Right. And when we found Ricky, our singer, it just clicked instantly for us, and we started making a brand of music that we're really proud of and really into. And it's really just getting started as far as like, because of COVID, we couldn't go out and play shows, so we were really having to hone in the sound like more in the studio, and that that takes a while. Sometimes the EP that we had previously released, which actually isn't available anymore, but that was like really like the first handful of songs we wrote together. So now the we got a few singles that are coming out in the next few weeks / months, and that's really kind of where we've been able to dial in the band's sound. And yeah, like you said, we're trying to we're making rock music and trying to make rock accessible to people, right. But at the same time, the bands that we're influenced by, the likes of whether it's us musicians, like the guys like Zeppelin or Pink Floyd or Tool or whoever it is, that has a big impact in how, experimental we want to try and get with this stuff, to just not have it be kind of, just boring music. Cause like to us, it's about bringing that genre forward rather than just kind of living in nostalgia of what it was.
Well, let me ask you this. When you changed singers and you went out and got DeCasa, in your press release, it says that you had a defined vision for the group and you didn't want to just get any singer. What is the defined vision of the group?
Well, I think that defined vision for the group was more as a band rather than for a singer, because the truth is we didn't know what we wanted for a singer. Like we had a lot of people that we, I guess audition is the wrong word, but that we jammed with and tried to see if it would work. And we never really had like a set kind of, blueprint, like this is the guy we want. I didn't know. It's like, do we want a guy like Chris Cornell? Do we want a guy like Dave Grohl? Like, I don't know, but the thing with us is we wanted somebody that could settle into this band and know what we were trying to do, because like for us, it's about the songwriting and it's about the relatability that we have to each other when doing that. And so when we got together with Ricky, or DeCasa as he's known by, like it just kind of worked, you know, and we really, you know, our influences were very similar while also being very different. Like, you know, the basis of this band was built on our love for the Red Hot Chili Peppers when we were like 13 years old, you know.
Wow.
So they were the like, I wanted to be in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know. It was like the band that I loved so much.
Well, they've had enough members, so there's still a chance for that to happen, quite frankly.
Well, it's weird.
Exactly.
Mitch, it's weird to hear him say that, because it's like my Red Hot Chili Peppers was Californication. Like I was in like grade 6 when that record came out. So it's like, it's kind of interesting to hear you talk about that. Like which Chili Peppers record was your record?
I mean, there were so many. I mean, now I'd say my favorite Chili Pepper record is the Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I mean, that, you know, changed my life completely. But it was just funny that as soon as we got together with Ricky and we're, you know, like, oh, what are some of your favorite bands? And, you know, he said the Chili Peppers. We just kind of went on this like 30-minute rant about
it's like a bromance going on. Yeah. Really, the Peppers? Oh, that's so good.
Exactly.
That's like Mitch and I, but with Def Leppard.
That's exactly, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So like we knew kind of what we wanted, you know, as far as like how a singer could settle in with the band, because like the three of us, since we've been together for so long and been friends for ages, you know, I know sometimes it's difficult for a new member for any band to just kind of get in there, and then you start writing songs and you're spending so much time together, and so you got to be comfortable. But it just worked out so naturally with Ricky, and you know, the way it's gone and you know, what we've started to kind of really dial in has been really awesome on our end.
How do you find somebody like him? Like, you just scrolling through Instagram, like hashtag singers, or like, how do you
got an email apparently?
Yeah, we tried everything, man. Like we started putting up like flyers at like Guitar Center, you know, like it was just
old school.
Like, yeah, it was getting really desperate near the end, because I mean, you know, we had like our inner circles, and you know, there was a limited amount of people that we knew that we thought could work. And Ricky, it was literally by chance. You know, I think he was scrolling on Instagram one day and for some reason came across the you know, our band at the time's Instagram, and he saw we were looking for a singer, and then we just got an email, and you know, we sent him a few demos. And it was funny because the way it worked previously is we'd do an audition, you know, like, hey, can you learn these songs? Whereas with him, it was just like, at that point, we had tried a few people and we were kind of losing hope. So we just sent him these 2 instrumental demos, and we were like, here, do what you want to them. And if it's good, we'll talk about it. And he sent it, and it was the best thing we'd received. And we were like, oh my God, I can see this. Like now I get it. Yeah. And so he flew to because he's based in Texas at the moment.
Right.
And he flew to Miami, and yeah, we really just, you know, hit it off on the first kind of trip, which was great.
He's got a great voice. I'll give you that. I mean, just a great voice. As you're doing the auditions, how do you sort of weed out the people that want to just be, oh, it's Phil Collins' son, I'm just gonna, like, do you get a bunch of those like sort of weirdos that just want to sort of?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I mean, because since we kind of, the way we advertised it was through the band Instagram, and I feel like you kind of have to do your homework to know that kind of side of it. And
the band was.
Yeah, exactly. Like to know who I was specifically. Like I don't think we really kind of put it out there. I mean, we could have, you know, I'm sure it would have, like, you know, saying like, oh, you know, Phil Collins' son would have done something, but that's not what we wanted to do. You know, like that would have, you know, like you said, it would have drawn in kind of a weird crowd.
Well, it would have polluted the pool.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like the truth is as much as obviously now that I'm playing with Genesis, I love that band and I love their music. But we also, you know, I realized that, you know, Better Strangers is not Genesis. So, and I know that if we would have done that, there was going to be some people who would have probably come in from that angle of like sounding like my dad. And that's not really what we wanted, you know?
Right.
Well, look, it's like Wolfgang Van Halen, like with the entire Van Halen fan base saying like, hey, like, how come you're not covering Panama Live? Like, how come you're not playing Van Halen songs? And he's like, I'm trying to do my own thing. Like, that was my dad's shit, and I'm going to do my own stuff.
No, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I follow Wolf, and he, you know, I'm so happy that he's doing what he's doing, you know, and just doing his own thing. You know, you got to respect that, because like, you know, you could easily, you know, and I, you know, I hear it. You could easily just kind of, especially after playing, you know, obviously like I'm playing with Genesis now, but he played in Van Halen, so you could totally like fall back on that. So I really respect that he's doing his own thing, man, and, you know, doing his own music and recording all of it. So it's really great.
Talk to me about doing your own thing and what the plans are, because of course you go on to the your dad's Not Dead Yet tour. Now you're doing Genesis. It sort of takes away some of the time that you can play or pay attention to Better Strangers. Now that it's sort of coming to an end, how do you sort of move forward? Do you just book a lot of shows? Do you get in the studio and do a lot of albums? Do you a YouTube presence? How do you sort of build it now moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing that I will say is well, throughout the entire time, going from the Not Dead Yet tour as well, like Yannick and Joey have been so, cool about everything.
Right.
There was no kind of weird vibe that I was going away for a certain amount of time. I mean, I was lucky, and I guess we were lucky that the way the tour was working was that we do like, do like maybe a few weeks on the road, and then we take a few months off.
Right.
This Genesis tour, since it's happened a bit quicker, is a bit different. So we've had a bit less time to do stuff in between. But when I'm not there, we're kind of attending to all the business stuff, so that when I am there, it's all kind of about the music. And if we're not playing shows, we're in the studio and writing and recording, and we're always trying to stay active. And obviously now that this is ending, the goal is basically to just get out there, and now that there is no kind of break, it's just to be able to capitalize on the momentum, because that is the tricky bit, is building a bit of momentum, and then be like, all right, I'll see you guys in a few weeks, and I know that's tricky for them, and so I'm lucky that they've been really receptive to it, and and they obviously see what I'm being involved in, and I guess have an appreciation for it, so I'm really grateful for that. So I thank them for that.
They're not jealous guys like, oh, look, Nick's going to play the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Germany, and I'm going to flip burgers at In-N-Out. Like, what a prick.
Yeah,
no jealousy
not
there.
at all, honestly. I mean, I think if I was playing in like a different band, I think it'd be a bit different. Like they could totally
a little
like,
different.
Yeah. I think with this is, they with my dad, I think a lot of it was like, it was great for me, and also to be able to just share those memories with my dad that, when I get older, that I'd be able to look back on, when I was like 17 doing that with my dad. Not a lot of people get to experience that, and I'm so glad I was able to. But yeah, I definitely think if I was like on the road with like, I don't know, Queens of the Stone Age, they'd be like, what the hell, dude? Like, you're just leaving us with this other band. Like,
right.
Just quickly talk to me about that ending, because the Genesis ending is the end for your dad in terms of the touring, but for you it's a new beginning, so there's something to look forward to. But what's sort of the sentiment around the household and the camp? I mean, is it like is there an excitement that after 50 years we're going? Is it excitement for you that you get to move on to Better Strangers, or is it sort of a sad like, oh well, it's the end? Like, what are we feeling?
It's a bit bittersweet for different reasons. I mean, I'm here rehearsing now, and there is no kind of sense of like, sadness or, at the moment, I think they're, on the day of the last show, there may be, and they probably will. But, the thing I've learned is that all the guys in the band, Mike and Tony and my dad, they kind of just live in the moment, and they're not really too worried about, what they're going to be feeling like in a bit. I'm sure that it is going to be really emotional for them. For me, being involved in it has just been such an honor and a privilege to just be able to share this kind of last lap with them and be part of it, because not only is it music that I grew up with, but, I've said this to multiple people, that learning the songs, I've just become a really big fan of the band. And so to be able to like play that music with them on stage, it's just been really great, especially as a drummer. And obviously onto that, being able to share those moments with my dad, my dad's life has literally been being on stage and being a musician.
Yeah.
So,
and it's been great.
For him, I guess, saying goodbye to that at the end of this is going to be tough for him and tough for us, as in his family, just who, that's how I've known him, I more so my older siblings who, my oldest sister Jolie, she was around in the Peter Gabriel days of Genesis, so she's like literally lived through everything, and that's kind of like it for him. But it is really bittersweet. I think there's a happiness that we're able to do it finally after years of postponement because of COVID, and I do think that there's a sense that like it's a triumphant thing that we're doing it and that we're finishing it. but I do also, I'm sure that the guys are going to miss it once it's done.
Let me just ask you this. How has playing those songs affected your playing? Because Better Strangers, as you said, is not Genesis, but yet after 2-3 years of rehearsing and playing and of course doing your you must pick up something. It's got to affect your playing somehow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like, maybe it's the wrong word, but the music definitely got proggier as I got,
right.
As I did this, just like, that's what I'm listening to. That's what I'm playing all the time. And it's not just down to Genesis, it's a bunch of different bands that, that we've been listening to. I mentioned like Tool and then, bands like whether it's Porcupine Tree or whoever, like just progressive rock bands that have started to creep their way into the way we write our music and the way we make it. So it definitely has had an impact. I mean, but I think it's more like a subtle thing. Like it's,
right.
I don't go like, hey, listen to this song, let's do what they do here,
right.
Which could be the case for another band, like there's different bands where, you love, I don't know, The Bridge or something, and you end up kind of trying to pick out the best bits. But for this, it's just been more of like a subconscious thing, since you're around it so often and all the time, it just ends up becoming a part of the music you create.
A little bit of the muscle memory creeps in kind of thing.
Exactly.
Talk to me about the songwriting, because you mentioned that you're involved in the songwriting, and of course, and I don't want to put everything on your dad, but your dad's one of the greatest songwriters ever. Does he sit and look at your songs and go, "Oh, son, no. You need to add a couple of words here. That's..."
Oh, no, that melody's a little off there.
Yeah, that melody. I don't know what you're doing there, son. Come on. What is that?
No, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't like, I guess insert himself on our music unless I ask him, or unless we just like it comes up in conversation. It came up in conversation over Christmas, and we sat down for about an hour, and I showed him like a bunch of the demos and tracks that we have. And he, actually surprisingly liked a lot of them. But there was one song where he was like, "Oh, didn't like that one." And
no, son, no.
Oh man!
But not in a songwriter way. He was just like, he's like, but to be honest, Nick, he's like, if your 70-year-old dad liked all your songs, there'd be something wrong with it anyways. So
yeah, it's got a point.
But did you have those conversations over the years, sitting at the dinner table or at the pool, out in Miami, going, son, when I write a song, this is the real. Like, did he sort of teach you over the years how to write, or where did you come from?
Subliminally?
No, like he really didn't, like, and that's one thing that I'm pretty grateful for, especially when somebody's parents, like, or a parent does this kind of thing. It's very easy to force that on your kid just because like you want them to do the same thing, that's like a mini version of you, I guess. But he was never like that, and he was really kind of let me do my own thing. And, throughout the years of bands I've been in, like, I'm sure he didn't like every single one I was in. I'm sure there was, I know there were some songs that he did, he was like, it was actually funny because we had like we found like an old, like, I guess, like documentary of sorts that we had made for like a band a few years ago. And he's in it. And at one point, there's like a great quote where he's like, what they're doing now may not be what they want to do in like 5 years, but you just got to support them. And that's like, in my head, I'm like, that's his way of just saying we suck. Like, that was just him saying like, this band's terrible. But but he honestly, he's always been, if I ask him for his opinion, then he's given it to me. But we've never had this kind of thing where he feels the need to tell me how to write the songs. And also, the conversations we've had when I have showed him the thing, surprisingly have always been really positive, which is...
Here you go. Hold on a second. I'm going to bring in somebody just for you. Give me 1 second here. We are going to bring in drummer Charlie Benante of Anthrax, because there's Charlie. Good day, Charlie. Bonjour.
Yo,
Charlie, as you know, went to see the Genesis shows, and it was widely reported in the media that he sat in the crying section because he saw
Oh my God.
Right. He saw what you were doing and what you were doing with your dad, and it affected him, and it affected all of us. First of all, bonjour, Charlie. Welcome.
What's up, Charlie?
Hi guys, how are you?
Yeah, so Charlie, just what would you like to say to Nic Collins? Because it just, right? I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was moving. It was something that I didn't expect would happen to me, and And I wasn't embarrassed by it. I mean, talking to you guys when we first did it, yeah, there's a little bit of like,
Oh, no, we were all about it when you were telling us. We're like, yeah, that was us too. Like,
Yeah.
but it goes back to what I always said about music. Music should move you. It should motivate you. It should do something to you inside. It shouldn't just be, I shouldn't have just been at the show with my phone in the air filming it. I should have been feeling it. And I would say that that had a lot to do with Nic's performance, playing the drum parts the way I knew them to be played. Like his attention to detail was like spot on and made it that much better for myself.
Yeah.
wow.
Thank you so much, man. And by the way, I told the guys before, but I just got the chance to see the message that you had sent on the email thread. And, you know, thanks so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. You know, to see that, you know, the impact of, you know, the show going, you know, to other musicians and, you know, other great drummers is just a really cool thing to see.
Dude, it was awesome. Right. Just like I said, moving. So, yeah, thank you. And to your dad has been, you know, a drumming idol, like since I was younger, you know, from even stuff like Brand X and things like that. You know, Phil's always been a drummer's drummer. And then once he stepped out in front and took over, dude, that took Genesis to a whole new level.
It really did. And we seem to forget that he was a drummer, but not just a drummer. I mean, he had these classic drum parts in these early Genesis songs. We just sort of think, oh, he's the guy who does Susudio and he's on MTV, but no, he's a drummer's drummer. I mean, he's just talented as all fuck, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry, man. No, I was just saying that was the kind of the thing with me because, like, since, you know, when I was born, you know, he wasn't in Genesis. I mean, they did the 2007 reunion tour, but I knew my dad as like a solo artist, really. That's how I knew him, being out front. And obviously, you know, there was a handful of Genesis songs that I grew up with, you know, like the hits and stuff. But then when I really started diving into everything and seeing him as a real drummer, and even just being here, seeing him part of a band, you know, being in a band myself, where it's like all of a sudden you see your dad being part of that dynamic with other people. It was just really cool to see, and just to kind of see him as a real drummer more so than a front man, which is what I always kind of knew him as.
Yeah. Well, let me just ask you this thing real quick. There was a quote from Tony Banks, and I might get it wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you went in to Genesis for the rehearsals and you learned the parts from the albums and you got them down pat, and you go into rehearsals and Tony says, stop. You're playing like the 70s. Pick it up, make it more modern. Is that quote, first of all, real? Is it accurate? And did you sort of have to modern it up?
That was just based on we did we were rehearsing like an excerpt from Musical Box off of Nursery Crime, and you know, there's a lot of very, you know, 70s prog rock feels, like, you know, the, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
the
so that
awesome
was
stuff.
Yeah, that's what he was referring to. And I remember him just being like, he's like, it's great. Just, you know, if you could just make it sound a bit more hip and not as like 1971, that'd be great, you know. And which is, you know, it's awesome for, you know, for them to give me that kind of sense of freedom, because there is kind of a good balance, because obviously there's some songs that have, you know, that we're still doing from, you know, the 70s era that, you know, you got to kind of update, and, you know, we're taking a bit more of a modern approach to it. But like that song specifically, I remember, you know, trying to really nail down those old fills. And but, you know, even the other day we were like running through some other songs, and he was just saying, you know, I was saying like, oh, I've been listening to this version or this version, and, you know, there's a few fills I want to try. He goes, hey man, be my guest. It's just as long as they're not too 1970, you know. And that's kind of like a thing for it.
Also not too like over the top. When you're doing some of those like 80s tunes, I mean, there's so many scenarios in the set where you like using the triggers, getting like the Simmons kind of sounds and stuff. Did you guys go back to like the original master tapes and sample those like to get into the like for the live set, or like how did you go about getting those sounds?
Yeah, most of them, like, you know, like Mama and Domino, and a lot of those triggers from those songs are just taken from the record, which was great, because our keyboard tech now, he always went on tour with them as like, I guess like the tour handyman, but he and the Genesis tour manager they basically built the farm, which is where they recorded like every record from like Abacab onwards. And so they like, he had the thing, you know, the WAV files on his computer. And it was funny because I remember sitting there with Brad Marsh, my drum tech, you know, basically trying to like create the Simmons sounds ourselves because we didn't know how to get them, you know. And after about 3 days, you know, Jeff was like, "Oh, I have them on my laptop. Like literally, all you have to do is just write them in, and it's there."
Sit there tuning, trying to program it, like just yeah. What about like front of house? I mean, the tone of the drums just sounded phenomenal, like in the mix. It was just so great. And Genesis is known for having one of the best front of house sounds ever. Like, do you have any say, like, oh, you know, I want like, you know, cannonball gated reverb on my snare, or I want them to sound dry? Like, do you have that artistic input, or is it up to like the band or the engineer?
I mean, as far as like, you know, triggering wise and what I'm playing at there, yeah, there's definitely some input. I mean, there's, you know, songs where it's like you have to have this trigger sound. The good thing that's been really great with the Genesis crew is a lot of them have been around for so long, so they know the songs. Like our front of house guy, Michelle, he basically, I mean, he's been with them for you know, a while, and he knows the tracks. He knows what, you know, kind of each song needs. So there isn't, you know, that much worrying that's needed, because since all of those guys have just been around the band for so long, they know the tendencies and they know, you know, what the drums are supposed to sound like. You know, there's always a handful of things like, you know, hey, can you bring the toms up, please? Like, you know, like,
right.
You know, turn the drums up in the mix and turn, you know, like there's always a bit of that. But, you know, overall, it's always just been pretty dialed in from the get-go.
Charlie, do you have any? Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
I have a couple questions about the set list. Were there any songs that you were excited to play, but then they got tossed out?
Yeah, there were a few. I remember, like, because at the beginning it was like a laundry list of songs. You know,
sure.
All three members, you know, and you could tell who wrote what. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there was definitely favoritism of like, well, I think we should play this song.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember like basically tearing my hair out at 4 songs, but it was Los Endos that I, you know, really tried my best to get down, and we never even rehearsed it.
Wow.
We did the back, like Apocalypse and 9/8 from Supper's Ready as well. And that was the worst one. I like broke a few snare drums just out of frustration because I would just like I couldn't get it down.
Grab it, toss it.
Yeah. And I remember that was like, because we did like the first rehearsals we did were in New York in like 2020, January 2020, before COVID, to even see if we could do it. It wasn't like any rehearsing for a tour. It was just to see if we wanted to. And I remember hearing like Tony like play like the keyboard solo. So I was like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. And then we just never got around to it. There's just so many songs. And I think also because my dad can't play the drums, you know, there's only so much instrumental stuff we can do in the set without, you know, without it being too much, you know, because it's not like before where a lot of the stuff could be instrumental because he's up there doing it. But now it is a bit different. And I think for the guys, they you know, pick some of the bits that they really, you know, their favorite bits that they think would do the best in the set. And then the last 2 was the instrumental part of Fading Lights. We do the front half, but we lead it into a medley. And then the live bridge from Abacab, which is like, I basically had to sit there and memorize all the keyboard, you know, solo parts just for us to do those, like practice a song except the bridge, which was funny. We literally did all of it except the part I was like, you know, super worried about.
But you brought in Misunderstanding for like one show and then threw it right out. How come?
That was like, they wanted to just, I guess, do something new. And then they did it twice, and they were like, "Well, that was fun. Let's go back to the old set." I just, you know, I think it was fun to do it, but I think, you know, it obviously definitely was a hit in the U.S. So I think that was why they wanted to do it in the U.S. first. But after doing it twice, they were just like, I think as far as like the, you know, the musical value that they kind of, you know, wanted to have in the set just diminished a little bit as opposed to having Duchess in, so we went back to having that one.
It was too mainstream for the show. That's
well, they played it like just before they were going to come to Montreal, and I was like, "Oh, thank God, this is great!" And they come to Montreal, they didn't play it, and I went, "Oh, dang it!"
Yeah, I used to hear that song every morning on Shome getting on the school bus, and it was like that was like my Genesis song. And I was like, "Damn, they didn't play it."
I know, but I guess that's the problem when you're a band of that stature is that regardless of what you play, there's always going to be the songs that a fan's going to go, "Oh, they didn't play Los Endos. Oh, they didn't play Supper's Ready." I mean, right? And Anthrax, Charlie, you do the same thing in Anthrax. You come to people, "Oh, they didn't play only.
Indians.
They didn't play only." And, it's... you sort of stuck. You're stuck all the time.
You always have to deal with that. And we did something the last time where we did a Spotify thing, or was it an Apple Music thing, where we let the fans pick the set list. And what do you think they picked? The same exact songs that we play all the time.
Well, it's funny.
And then they complained about that. It's like, well,
Metallica did the tour in 2017 where it was pick the set list. And every night they picked Enter Sandman, nothing else. And you're just like, you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but bands like, the bands like you guys, you can do that. You're not like other bands where you're just going out and playing to the Pro Tools and it's the same 19 songs every night.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's a song off of, I think it's just the Genesis record, Job to Do. Was there any talk about putting that in the set?
No, that one not specifically. I mean, there's a handful of songs where that I was like, oh, we got to do this one, or but I think for them, there's I'm sure with you guys too. There's the mix of like, okay, what do people know, and then also like, what do we want to play, and kind of having a good balance between that, because especially with the Genesis catalog, there's like 3 different distinct eras and sounds, and so I think trying to pick the best parts from all of it, is tough. Like for Selling England by the Pound is probably like one of the best represented albums in the set list, surprisingly, as opposed to like there pretty much really isn't anything from like Nursery Crime or Foxtrot, for example. And that's not it's not necessarily on purpose. It's just this just happens to be how they think we can represent those that era. Part of the that era in the best way. There was definitely a few deep cuts, especially off that record. There was a Job to Do, and I really like It's Gonna Get Better. So I was like can we do that? And I just think there's just so many songs. We already had to cut down the set list from what we already had because it was just getting into like 3.5 hour territory, and we just had it was too much to do it.
I wouldn't have complained.
Yeah, I didn't have enough tissues to last 3 hours.
That's it. The crying section would have been underwater. It would have been flooded. Nick, I want to go to gear just really quickly. I mean, your drum kit, I mean, it's enormous, and I love the fact that we're seeing a big drum kit on stage because you don't see that these days. Are you more comfortable behind the giant kit, or are you more of like the basic kit kind of guy?
I mean, I think they're like it depends for which songs. For the Genesis stuff, it's definitely like it's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard to do a lot of these songs without that big kit, just based on like the parts and just based on like my dad used to do a lot of fills with like the tom and the cymbals at the same time, and with the basic kit, it's very hard to do that. I mean, back at home, I use a bit more of a, I guess like a Bonham style kit as far as like toms go, with a few extra concert toms. I've started kind of overloading on the cymbals now. Nice. I think COVID did that to every drummer, where like you couldn't go out and play shows, so you just like I could totally do with like a second splash in this area.
Another 17-inch right there. Just why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's like Step Brothers, you know what I mean? Like that's just like what it turns into. But
you need a gong.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what I'm kind of waiting for, is just
with a ring of fire around it. Who used to do that? Was that Rush?
Van Halen style.
Van Halen style. That's it.
But as far as like gear goes for this stuff, the big kit definitely suits the best. And obviously we're using a concert tom kit, which just helps bring some of the songs to life without really needing triggers. There's a lot of songs that have those iconic sounds, which literally is just the drums going to the front of house, with a bit of gated reverb on it afterwards. But it's it's not like we're just using triggers the whole time for those songs too. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the nature, especially of progressive rock, is you kind of need a big kit. That's just kind of, the only thing I'm missing is 2 kick drums, like
Right.
that's it,
Yeah.
Hey, let me just ask you this one thing. I saw this interview that you did, and you said that you had a drum teacher named Jean Esperanto Santo, if I said it correctly. I was surprised that you said that in that video, because I thought, well, Dad taught you. Talk to me about, just real quick, about where did you learn the drumming, and how was it not Dad that just sort of sat around and taught you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, my dad never wanted to be so on top of me where like I would almost start hating the drums, because
Gotcha.
I think that that's so important, especially with drumming, where like it's so feel based. Like you've got to find your own kind of, angle towards it,
Right.
and what you kind of want to do. JP, Jean-Pierre Espirito Santo, he was my first, like my drum teacher when I first moved to Miami, and he was like my dad, and he'll even say it himself. My dad was outstanding drummer, but he didn't have much knowledge of the technical side of it. He just did it, and which is why some of his parts are so great. And I even some of these fills that I'm kind of learning are like, okay, I've got to do it this way, which isn't the way it's supposed to be, but that's how he kind of played these iconic parts. Whereas JP like really taught me the kind of like the rudiments and just the technique side of things, which I think is important. To any drummer to really kind of just at least have knowledge of that. I'm not saying you got to kind of be able to like sight read, because I can't sight read.
Right.
But just having some sort of knowledge about how to do, certain things that just are in everybody's playing, you just don't notice it. But when when you have that knowledge, you can kind of, it just expands, what you can do on the kit so much more. So yeah, he definitely really helped me a lot when I first moved to just get that side of my drumming going too.
Yeah, and I recommend folks go check him out on YouTube, the Jean-Pierre, because it was just great. It was rhythmic, and you got the whole, they had a Latin sort of thing going on. It was terrific drumming.
Yeah,
terrific.
we did some cool drum duets, which was fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you when you guys are playing the show live, are you conscious about the tempo, or are you kind of locked into something going on?
Yeah, well, as far like there's a handful of songs where there's drum machine loops, like for like Mama, or Land of Confusion has like a bass sequencer that's like that's there. So those are obviously it's pretty easy to just you're basically playing to a drum machine. For the other ones, like some of the instrumental bits are a bit more, there's a bit more freedom in it, because they just kind of move. There is no kind of set, this is how the speed it's got to be at the whole time. But definitely at the beginning, I was, especially when you start playing shows, because I have this joke that we've almost done more legs of rehearsals than we have of the tour at this point, because it kept getting postponed, and so because of that, like when you're playing to nobody, you're just comfortable, and then all of a sudden you see a crowd and there's like that adrenaline. And I remember on the first show we did, I was like, well, thank God, Land of Confusion had a drum, had some sort of loop going on, because I would have started that way quicker, just based on like, feeling the audience like that, and not having done that in such a long time because of COVID. But yeah, there's definitely that, especially for my dad too, where, there's a right tempo, but there's also the tempo that, nobody's going to go back and be like, well, I didn't play it at the right speed. They're going to be like, well, the singing didn't sound, the singing was trying to catch up,
right.
It was too fast, And so to me, it's always trying to accommodate to the rest of the guys to make them feel comfortable, especially my dad, if he's like ahead on a song or behind on a song, like just to make that kind of settle in and feel as good as possible.
On your in-ears, like with so much stuff going on with the sequencing and drum loops, like do you have like audible cues, like invisible touch, keyboard 2, 3, 4?
No, yeah, none of that. That's right. All like just memorizing the song, which I thought was honestly more important than knowing the time signatures and tempos. It's just like what I just would do is just play the song and like in my car on the way to to the studio or something. Just be able to just be one with the song, because like we were talking about it the other day, like Firth the Fifth, like I have no idea what time signature that's in. I don't really want to know what time signature that's in either, because as soon as I know that, I'm going to start thinking about it. And to me, it's just like just knowing the song and feeling out the parts, and like the keyboards are such a big driving force behind those progressive bits, like Firth the Fifth or Cinema Show. Like that's really what I was kind of dialed into was those parts. and just memorizing the song based off like, certain cues that you hear in the mix.
Yeah.
Do you follow more or less Tony, or do you follow Daryl and Mike?
It kind of depends, like for which songs. There, a song like Home by the Sea, I'm definitely following Tony.
Right.
Like I'm driving the groove, but Tony's melodic stuff is really what I'm kind of dialed into. But then there's some songs, it just kind of, I guess, depends what the where the accent is coming from, as far as like which instrument is doing what and which instrument is doing the heavy lifting. Like Cinema Show, I have to be really locked in with Mike, for example, because that's, the syncopated 12-string part, which, you have to kind of really be locked in with that. But I would say that Tony is a big, driving force as far as like who I'm kind of really dialed into,
Right.
because, his parts are so complex, and it's, he's kind of like a freight train. If he's going somewhere, like he's not going to stop and you better follow him. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, Daryl, he's basically the guy in the band who like knows every single song and never makes a mistake. So if you're confused, you just look at Daryl and he, we'll figure it out.
Daryl's amazing. Not only does he know all of the Genesis stuff, he knows all of the Phil stuff. I mean, he probably knows like 300 songs. The guy. I mean, he's incredible. Yeah. One last comment for me, and then one last question. During the song, I Know What I Like, of course, your dad takes out the tambourine and does the stuff. That's the part that is, the heartbreaking, because he just wanted to do it for the fans, even though you could tell that maybe there was physical pain, and it was incredible. So, is that hard for you to watch? Is that pleasant to watch and go, go, Dad, give it a shot? Or, because, right, that's right, Charlie, that's where it sort of broke down for both of us.
Yeah, that's where it hit me.
Yeah,
that's all.
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, like, there's part of me where, like, obviously, I wish my dad, like what happened to him, like his getting, he had like surgery on his neck or his back, and, basically fucked his foot up, and I wish that like that didn't happen. I wish that he could still play. We tried, running a few songs where he could, he could play, and he just didn't, the thing that was hard for him is that, he used to sit down on a drum set and that was like his kingdom, like he went there and he was the man, and so I think not being necessarily able to play like he used to, it's hard for him. And I think, for a song like I Know What I Like, that's a bit tongue in cheek as far as like him doing the tambourine dance, because obviously he can't do like the crazy acrobatics that he used to do. But so I think there's definitely that kind of comedy side of it. And I just think he knows that that's like a, was an iconic part. And he's just kind of, he's doing it and, just he's not trying to make it. I think the thing is if he was playing drums, is he would know that he's not what he used to be. And so I think it's more for him to just like do it in this kind of different way, which is great to see him enjoying himself and to see him really, be able to relate to this music again after some, Know What I Like is from like 1973. So to still be able to enjoy doing that after so long of doing it, it's just been great to see, not only just, on stage with him, but just seeing like my dad do that, and just seeing him kind of be on stage. Because I remember when he retired, all of our, me and all my siblings were like, I know what you're doing, man, because that's kind of where you kind of should be, is up on stage. That's kind of where you're yourself, and so being able to see him do it and, basically do with his bandmates that he's been with, I think it's kind of cool that he's ending it with the people he started, really,
Agreed.
Which is just like a really awesome thing to see and to be able to share with them.
Yeah.
And I have one last question without ruining it for everybody, but as we get to these final shows, do we see some kind of special something at the last shows? Does Steve Hackett show up? Does Anthony Phillips show up? Does Peter Gabriel come out and do a song? Are there plans? I mean, we'll stick to yes and no, not to ruin it, but are there plans for something special to happen?
I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, at the moment, not really, but you never know. Okay. I'm since the last shows are in London, who knows? I mean, I'm assuming Peter. I don't really know Peter and Steve too well, but I'm assuming Peter and Steve also live in London. So, I wouldn't rule it out, but also at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's anything, that's in the works.
There's nothing
Because
cooking,
at
right?
At the moment, there isn't anything, you know what I mean? There isn't kind of any talks, but again, I don't know,
Well, maybe Charlie Benante will go out and play a drum solo with you. I mean, we could set that up.
Yeah, Mitch could play air cowbell in the corner. Like, why not?
There you go.
Well, listen, ready. Yeah, we got to wrap. I mean, geez, we went way longer than we were expecting. This is great. Better Stranger, what's going on with the record and stuff? Like, when can we expect the new single to actually drop and get out there?
Yeah, the new single is, it's kind of in like the final stages of videos and cover art and all that kind of stuff. So really, ideally, in the next few weeks, staying tuned to the socials, and I'm sure you'll hear an announcement soon. We're really excited to be putting this new stuff out. It's been a long time coming, and just like I mentioned earlier, like dialing in the sound and getting more in depth and more comfortable with the songwriting and just like us as a 4-piece. So yeah, it's just it's exciting for us, and hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
and having fun. That's the most important part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new song is But I Don't Know Your Name, which will be out soon. Charlie, you've had a chance to hear it. Any quick comments on it?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was really good. It had for me, it had a bit of a retro feel, but modern as well. I just thought it was a really good song. Great melody and just great playing.
Yeah, and I'm always partial to the singing. If you don't have a good singer, I'm out, and you've got a good singer. So
See, I'm the production guy. I heard the production, I'm like, oh yeah, good sound.
Yeah, no, I don't care how good a song is. If you got a shitty singer, I'm out. But you don't have a shitty singer. You got a great singer.
Needs a little bit more cannonball snare, but I'm good with this.
There you go. Thank you, folks.
All right, appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. It was so great to meet you. We'll chat soon.
Yeah, great to meet you guys. Yeah, great to meet you too, Charlie. Hope to catch up.
Yeah, man. I'll see you in Miami. Take care.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Right
Cheers, everybody.
All right.
An all-new episode of The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Tuesday at noon.
Available wherever you stream.